Sorry, right? And we do see our players getting ready for their match. You see Arash Ommati on your left and, of course, Shengyu on your right side.
Yeah, and the players are just going to get themselves set up, and we will get all of the accolades and teams on the screen in just a moment. But you can see there, Piplup just sitting quite pretty there. It's a nice little picture, that one.
It's just hanging out, chilling out there, supporting its trainer.
How have you found the tournament today? What have been your highlights from today?
Oh yeah, I told Ben before, I really liked that highlight in the earlier parts of the tournament where we saw Chiyu go for Terra Water and then it taking a wild charge right there and then. Also, you know, we did hear the crowd roar with, you know, the Iron Bundle attacking its own Annihilate and freezing it. That was unfortunate, but yeah, I don't know. That's the thing with Pokemon. When you go for plays like that, there is always a little bit of risk involved that something can go wrong. And unfortunately, in that case, things went very, very wrong.
Yeah, I feel like that sort of play where the Annihilate got frozen by its own Iron Bundle is something that would happen to myself if I was playing. So I do sympathize with the player in that situation, but some great moments. And you can see both players are, you know, I think when you come into this stage in the tournament, both players have had an incredible run to get here so far, 6-1, just one more win away to guarantee that day 2, and then kind of day 1 job is done. We can see the accolades here. We've got Arash Ommati, very well known. We've already covered him in the highlight videos for Italy, but that 2013 World Championship, he is the world champion from that year. Obviously, on top of that, he has a 2015 UK national finalist, a German national champion as well in 2016, and the run continues with that top 8 at the World Championship in 2018.
Yeah, and Shengyu here does not have any achievements listed, but he has still done very well this season. You know, in Malmö, Liverpool, and EU, I see he went 6-3. So every time very close to making that day 2, but never managed to get it.
Yeah, and I believe he's on around 220 championship points at this stage in the season. So very close to locking up that day 1 invite. So only needing 30 points to lock that up and get himself a place at the World Championships in Yokohama in the summer. So everything to play for, putting himself in a great position to do that here at this event, which would be amazing for him.
And, you know, since he is currently 6-1 and we do have 2 more matches to go, this might be his time. Might be his time to finally make that day 2 that he missed so many times, just this barely.
Yeah, and that's the thing. As you said, you mentioned the records that he's had at all of these previous regionals, so close to getting the day 2, and maybe this is the one where he's going to do it against a former world champion, and what a way to do it as well. As we get into the team information, here we are with Arash. He is going to be playing the Fluttermane, the King Gambit, Arcanine, Iron Bundle, Shen Pao, and the Dragonite.
Oh man, there's the Arcanine King Gambit combo that I just love so much. Again, it's not the set that I typically play, you know, the black glasses and the Howl set. It is the safety goggles and, you know, Protect over Howl, and another Assault Vest King Gambit, which we have seen a little bit of today on the stream already. But yeah, although, you know, Arash's team looking fairly standard, you know, it is a standard team for a reason. It is very powerful.
That's it, and I think one of the big strengths about Arash as a player is he's, you know, he can play the standard Pokemon. He knows exactly what he's doing with this sort of Pokemon. There's got a good core, good synergy in here, and it'll suit Arash's sort of play style as well. I'm so pleased to have you on the desk beside me when we are featuring another King Gambit, though, because I know how well versed you are with that Pokemon, and it's going to be great to kind of go in and see how Arash adapts his game plan with that King Gambit. We are coming over to Shengyu's side of the field now, and he has got that Fluttermane, the Scissor, the Chiyu, Iron Bundle, Great Tusk, and Murkrow.
Yeah, so Scissor, a Pokemon we haven't seen at all yet today, and Great Tusk, also a Pokemon that, although it is surprisingly popular, we didn't get to see it that much today.
In the previous match, I think this looks a very similar team to Chiyu's team that we've just featured as well. It looks very similar with that Scissor there. Same moveset with the Pounce and the Bullet Punch as well. The Terrestrial Water type on there as well. And then that Great Tusk with the Choice Scarf. Nice support there with the Murkrow. It's got that Focus Sash. So I think a similar set again. I think Ben mentioned on the previous match that if it comes down to its Focus Sash, then the item is kind of used up essentially, doubling the power of that acrobatics, making it quite an offensive threat. And I think they did cover it as well, that Murkrow, although it is a pre-evolution, you know, it's a first stage evolution, it is a lot stronger than Talonflame, which is not something you would expect. So it will be hitting and doing a lot of good damage, something that Arash needs to keep in mind, of course. And having access to that instant speed control with that prankster ability is something that Shengyu can really take advantage of in this match.
Yeah, I really like the idea of focus sash and acrobatics on Murkrow. You know, the fact that, you know, it does have a higher attack stat than Talonflame, and we know how much Talonflame likes to just fire off Brave Birds and how much damage those can do. So, you know, acrobatics is a very, very interesting tech here that we haven't seen before. And also the Scissor. I remember, like, all the way back in Series 1 when people were saying, like, oh, you know, Scissor is going to be so good with terrestrialization, you know, especially like that water type. But we haven't actually seen a lot of people use it.
No, and I think the one thing that Arash maybe has, and he's kind of a little bit of an advantage here, is that King Gambit. I'm going to point it out again. The one drawback with Scissor, I think, with this particular set is that Pounce. It has the added effect, or secondary effect, however we're calling it, to reduce the speed stat on the Pokemon it hits. Now, you're not going to want to do that into the King Gambit because of that Defiant ability. So every time you do that, you're going to proc that attack stat and give it additional attack, making things a lot worse for you.
Yeah.
You can't really utilize the Bullet Punch against it because it's going to be not very effective, but there are Pokemon on Arash's side that the Bullet Punch will be effective against, namely that Fluttermane, the Shenpao, the big two Pokemon on that team. The Shenpao is going to be utilized to kind of support the Dragonite, make sure it's hitting harder, make sure that King Gambit's getting as much attack presence out as well as the Arcanine. So removing that and the Fluttermane quite effectively are going to be useful things that the Scissor can be used for. You've just got to keep in mind that the Shenpao has got a Focus Sash, so if you can chip it down at all early on in the match and then bring in the Scissor maybe late game to clean things up, it's going to be able to one-hit KO onto that Fluttermane, potentially pending an Intimidate from the Arcanine, of course, and that Shenpao as well.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, you know, that Pounce from the Scissor does not want to go into the King Gambit and boost its attack. And, you know, King Gambit is anyway a Pokemon that is very slow, so it doesn't really care too much about having its speed lowered, and it can go for moves like Sucker Punch. We are going to get right into this first match, though. Going to see an Arcanite Chi and Power lead versus Chi-Yu Iron Bundle.
Yeah, it's a very similar lead to what we saw in the previous match with that Chi-Yu and the Iron Bundle. Chi-Yu going to lower the special defense on everything on the field and take advantage of these big special attacking threats. We are going to see the Hawk Drive activated with that booster energy on the Iron Bundle as well, put itself ahead of everything else on the field. But you have to be a little bit aware of the potential Sucker Punch threat from that Shenpao. But Chi-Yu doesn't really worry about that too much, and the Iron Bundle doesn't, with that big defense stat that it already has, it's in a decent position now to start really disrupting things on Arash's side of the field.
Yeah, Arcanine does have to watch out for a Hydro Pump here, and it is going to switch out here for Arash Ommati. Does not want to risk losing it turn one right away. Dragonite going to come in, so potentially going to take any Hydro Pumps here very, very well. And Chi-Yu just going for Protect, does not want to take any Heat Waves from this Chi-Yu. So I'm curious to see, we are going to see an Icy Wind here from the Iron Bundle, so is going to hit that Dragonite super effective, but it does have multi-scale, so will have that damage, but still does over 50%, lowering that speed. And this Chi-Yu is going to go for a Heat Wave, not going to do any damage into that protecting Chi and Pow, but is going to hit that Dragonite for a little bit of damage, and it actually gets the KO on that switch in. That is a huge knockout for Shengyu, just getting rid of that huge threat. That Dragonite next to a Chi and Pow, that can hurt.
Yeah, you can see, you know, we talked about it on the switch in, you mentioned it, the multi-scale there, you think the Dragonite's going to be fine switching in there, but the damage that it took with that support from the Chi-Yu, with its Beads of Ruin ability there, really making it difficult, and then the Heat Wave just following up and putting Arash in a really difficult position now, because I think he was going to be relying on that Dragonite to be the offensive pressure alongside the Shenpao in this match, but now going to have to fall back on maybe a plan B here, and looking like he is going to bring in that Arcanine again, but we're back to that same situation from turn one.
Minus the Dragonite.
Yeah, minus the Dragonite. Well, you pointed out in turn one as well that the Arcanine really threatened by the Hydro Pump from this Iron Bundle as well. And then obviously the Shenpao not in a great position either. You could see something here like an Icy Wind and then a Heat Wave, and that Shenpao is going to be kind of joining the Dragonite in the back. Yeah,
I actually really like that Shengyu realized here that the Chi and Power probably cannot do much if, you know, it takes an Icy Wind and then a Heat Wave, it will go down, and I'm not feeling too threatened by that Arcanine, so didn't didn't find it necessary to go for a Hydro Pump there, just went straight for an Icy Wind and hit that Dragonite for a lot of damage. That was surprising. Like, even, you know, it has multi-steel, but it is still 4 times effective. So, you know, Arash has to be a little careful here. Chien-Pao going to go for a double protect is not going to work. So if the Icy Wind here connects, oh, Arcanine actually avoids it, so he's not going to have its speed drop. But Chien-Pao does take a little bit of damage, and if the Heat Wave from a Chi-Yu here connects, this Chien-Pao is going to go down as well, but it actually misses the Chien-Pao. Oh my goodness. Arcanine going to take that very well.
Yeah, I mean, you would be all right if the Icy Wind missing there, if it just connects with the correct slot, but we do see a lot of damage come from that Arcanine with that Flare Blitz. Yeah, a bit unfortunate there for Shengyu, missing on both targets with the opposite move that he really wanted to hit them with.
Yeah, and I think Shengyu, as I said, realized that this Iron Bundle will take one Flare Blitz from this Arcanine fairly easily, which is why he didn't find it necessary to go for a Hydro Pump. But now that it has taken one of those Flare Blitz, it is in range for an Extreme Speed, or maybe even, you know, a Sucker Punch from a Chien-Pao.
Yeah, you've got to work. You've got to think though. The Iron Bundle's got a very interesting Terra type here. It has got that Ghost Terra typing, so if it does suspect the Extreme Speed, it could go for that now. But no, we're not going to see it this time around, as it just switches out. Iron Bundle leaving the field, nice and safe, and the Great Tusk going to make its way back onto the field, and as that Chien-Pao protects on Arash's side.
Yeah, Chien-Pao going for its 3rd protect now, and Arcanine Extreme Speeding that Chi going to do okay amount of damage, and Dark Pulse firing back onto that. Arcanine gets the KO on that Pokemon as well. So Arash really being pushed into a corner here, not looking too great for him. Of course, Chien-Pao does threaten that Great Tusk a little bit, but, you know, Shengyu is at a 4 Pokemon advantage right now.
Yeah, and that Great Tusk has got the Choice Scarf as well, so it is in a position where it is going to be faster than everything on the field. It is going to be able to get an attack off before anything. I don't think it's in any threat of going down to a Sucker Punch from the Kingambit. It's too good defensively to go down to that, no matter what kind of Kingambit build we have here, and it's definitely not strong enough, the one that Arash is running. Yeah, he's been put into a corner, and it doesn't really feel like he's got a way out, but we are going to see the Terastallization come out here this turn.
Yeah, no, I can confirm Kingambit does not do well against Great Tusk, so Chien-Pao going to go for a Terra Ghost here. You know, going to be immune to any potential, you know, pretty normal type attacks here. Although, you know, we do have Chi-Yu and Great Tusk on the side. Sucker Punch is going to be enough to knock out that Chi-Yu. So maybe, you know, if the Great Tusk went for a close combat here into that Chien-Pao, it is not going to take any damage. And Great Tusk just goes for a Headlong Rush onto this Kingambit. Is enough to get the one-hit knockout. Amazing. So Arash losing 3 of his Pokemon to, like, almost 1 hit.
That's a huge turn here for Shengyu. Like you say, like taking the knockout, identifying the Kingambit as it comes onto the field and thinking, well, if I get some return out of my Great Tusk, it's going to be getting a return on that Kingambit. And yeah, the Chien-Pao Terastallizing is able to get the knockout onto that Great Tusks. But we have got the Iron Bundle to come in now for Shengyu, and the Scissor as well, which has just made its way onto the field. Arash,
I really like that Shengyu here decided to take out the Kingambit, even though it wasn't necessarily a threat to the Great Tusk. But it, you know, it might have been a little bit more difficult to handle for the Scissor, and I think Scissor can handle the Chien-Pao a lot better. And I think, you know, with the Iron Bundle, it should be able to handle this. Sucker Punch going to easily knock out this Iron Bundle here, but Scissor now, you know, could go for maybe a Pounce to lower the speed. No, it's just going to go straight for a Bullet Punch. Going to do. I'm sure that another Bullet Punch should be able to knock this out easily, yeah.
And it's a strong Pokemon, so we'll be able to take this Sucker Punch pretty comfortably. You see there, it's just doing about 40%, whereas the Bullet Punch able to knock out the Chien-Pao and take game 1 for Shengyu as we go into game 2.
Yeah, very, very well played by Shengyu here. That knockout in round 1, you know, huge. And then, you know, Chien-Pao not getting the double protect, but still knocking down Shengyu, kind of ignoring that. Maybe realizing that Chien-Pao is in a position where it cannot risk to just attack. You know, it'll just take an Icy Wind and then a Heat Wave and then go down. So, yeah, really nice plays there from Shengyu's side. And now I'm very curious to see how Arash will go into game 2, because he really, really got pushed into a corner there almost that entire game, like from beginning to end.
Yeah, it was really oppressive from Shengyu's side, really impressive as well, where, you know, I think the lead with the Chi-Yu and the Iron Bundle, you don't often see it being piloted as well as Shengyu did there. But you saw Arash was in a corner. He wasn't really doing much with the Arcanine out on the field, so trying to adjust, but got punished for that switch into the Dragonite. And the amount of damage that it took from the Icy Wind and then the Heat Wave was just enough It is part dragon, so you think with that multi-scale, you should be taking that attack pretty well. You know, you should be staying on the field, but even if it had survived there, I think it would have been to the point where it wasn't going to be effective anyway. So I think if Arash is to bring the Dragonite in this next game, I think you've got to maybe lead with it, or at least allow it a free switch in to get some more value out of it, because he got absolutely nothing there, and it really put him on the back foot for the rest of the match. Like you say, he was kind of pinned in, and Shengyu didn't really give him any room to kind of get back into the game at all.
No, Shengyu just going on the offensive, just, you know, hitting moves, just going for Icy Winds, lowering speeds, and just going for Heat Waves. We even saw an Icy Wind miss and one Heat Wave miss, but, you know, he didn't care. It's like, Chien-Pao, it still went for the protect, didn't get it, you know, it's fine, it's whatever. And we are going to go straight into game 2. Great Tusk Iron Bundle lead here on Shengyu's side, and Dragonite Chien-Pao, a very popular combo we have seen quite a bit of.
Yeah, and Arash really adjusting here, knowing that he doesn't want to have to switch that Dragonite in. Any potential dangers like he did in that first game, getting it onto the field and in a position where it can benefit from that Chien-Pao's ability straight off the bat. You are in an awkward position again, where you are at the risk of getting that multi-scale broken pretty easily from the Iron Bundle, which is going to be the fastest thing on the field, and then the Great Tusk, which we know has got that Choice Scarf, which threatens that Chien-Pao pretty heavily going into this turn, especially with that speed control, the additional speed control, and the ability to break the sash on that Chien-Pao that, you know, Arash kind of needs to make sure is intact going into the next few turns of this battle. And
let's also not forget this Great Tusk is playing Rock Slide, so it can hit both of these opposing Pokemon very hard if it connects, you know, and of course there is always the chance to flinch. Terrestrialization here though going to come out onto this Great Tusk, is going to Terra into that Steel type, going to make it resist any potential Ice type attacks coming out from this Chien-Pao this turn. Iron Bundle going to go for a Protect, so no Icy Winds this turn. So we are probably going to see Dragonite actually going for an Extreme Speed here onto this Iron Bundle. So maybe Arash Ommati trying to get a quick KO on the little penguin. But no, and Chien-Pao, yeah, does go for a Sucker Punch, but it's not going to work against this Protect. Rock Slide does connect with both of these Pokemon, going to do more than 50% to this Chien-Pao and break that Dragonite's multi-scale. Yeah. So another huge round 1 for Shengyu.
And a great shot from you, Shona, there on the Rock Slide, pointing that out, and what a perfect terrestrialization there from Shengyu, and a great Protect as well, completely nullifying anything that Arash was trying to achieve that turn, going into that double Protect and then utilizing that Rock Slide, breaking the multi-scale, and like you say, putting that Chien-Pao now in a position where it is going to likely get knocked out this next turn. The Iron Bundle nice and safe as well behind that Protect here, and can utilize that Icy Wind, and probably the Dragonite now in a position where it can fire off an Extreme Speed. It's not really going to get anything else off, but an Icy Wind will be enough to pick up the knockout onto it. But Shengyu doesn't want to risk that, wants to keep it around for later on in this match. Going to use that Great Tusk to clear up what's on the field and bring in that Scissor.
Yeah, Scissor can take Extreme Speeds here very well, because the Dragonite is locked into that move because of its choice band. So, you know, a Terra, Steel, Great Tusk, and Scissor can take those all day. Dragonite is going to go for Terrestrialization here, going to boost that Extreme Speed even more. So now I'm actually curious to see how much this Extreme Speed will actually do. Chien-Pao deciding to go for a Protect, does not want to go down to another Rock Slide here. We are going to see Extreme Speed go out first, probably maybe into that Scissor slot, trying to get the knockout on that slot. It was the Iron Bundle, does almost half. That is good damage for Dragonite. You know, again, showcasing just how powerful that, you know, combination of Chien-Pao with Choice Band, Terra, normal Dragonite is. Rock Slide now not going to do super effective damage because that Dragonite is not Flying type anymore.
Yeah, it's a nice terrestrialization from Arash as well, and you can see, like you say, I am surprised at the amount of damage. I'm not surprised as well at the same time. The Dragonite with the Extreme Speed, with that normal terrestrialization, is very strong, and the amount of damage it's done to that Scissor kind of puts it in under a lot of threat this next turn. You've got the Sucker Punch as well from the Chien-Pao, so there could be the double up with the Extreme Speed. You know, you've mentioned it is locked into that, so it's not really got another option to switch around. Arash could keep it for later on in this match, of course, preserve it for another time, but if he does keep it on the field, he is going to be doing some good damage into that Scissor this turn.
Yeah, and Arash deciding to switch out the Chien-Pao here, once again does not want it to go down to a Rock Slide, which is the only move that Great Tusk can use right now. King Gambit is going to take those very well, but a double switch actually from Arash, going to reveal his last Pokemon, which is that Arcanine, going to get an Intimidate off onto both of these Pokemon. But, you know, if Shengyu doesn't switch his Great Tusk here, it is going to fire off a super effective Rock Slide onto this Arcanine, but at -1 might take that okay. Quick Guard here from Scissor is not going to do anything since Arash did go for the double switch. Rock Slide connects with both Pokemon. Arcanine taking that fairly well, and of course Kingambit not caring about that at all.
That's a great observation, I think, from Arash in particular, where he could have went for the extreme speed and that Sucker Punch, but seeing that the Scissor came onto the field, a great switch from Shengyu, knowing that you've got access to that Quick Guard, which is going to block all of those priority moves and make it really difficult for the Dragonite and the Shenpao to get any sort of momentum there. Shengyu gets some nice damage with that Rock Slide, especially onto the Arcanine, but it is in a bit of a precarious position now where it's not really going to be effective against the Kingambit, and the Kingambit in a position where it can probably go for something like a low kick into that, the Great Tusk, and do some big damage. So you probably want to try and readjust your board position, and as you see, Shengyu going to keep it around for later.
Yeah,
so
that's a very, very fair switch here from Chengyu's side, because Great Tusk right now is not really doing a lot, and brings in the Flutter Mane, revealing his last Pokemon. Double switch from Chengyu's side this turn as well, so going to bring back that Iron Bundle that we saw previously. It has not taken any damage yet, but it does not have its booster energy now. Flare Blitz going to go into that slot that was Scissor, going to do more than half to that Iron Bundle here, so taking a little bit of recoil, but sitting pretty. Low kick is not going to affect that Flutter Mane that used to be the Great Tusk, of course.
Yeah, really nice switch. Both players kind of adjusting on either turn here and changing up their two Pokemon on the sides of the field. The Flutter Mane now on the field. It does threaten the Kingambit, of course, but it has to be very wary about that Kingambit with its Sucker Punch, because it will do a lot of damage, potentially even pick up the knockout there. So you have to be very careful about how you're playing the Flutter Mane. It has got the choice specs, it hasn't got access to the Focus Sash, but you can do some respectable damage to both the Kingambit, or if you choose to go down maybe a Shadow Ball route, if you want to prioritize getting rid of the Arcanine, then you can go down that route as well. And the Iron Bundle, is that in Sucker Punch range? It feels like it could be, but we are going to see it retreat for this turn, and Shengyu decides to keep it around for later and bring out the Great Tusk once again onto the battlefield.
Yeah, I think Shengyu realized that Iron Bundle was in a position to be KO'd by either a Sucker Punch or maybe even Extreme Speed Sucker Punch. So switching that out, bringing the Great Tusk back in. Chien-Pao going to come in here now, so any damage this Kingambit does is going to be boosted. Shadow Ball, though, going into this Chien-Pao switch in, but is enough to get the KO, so never mind, that ability is gone. So Kingambit again just doing neutral damage. Maxicuse is going to go for, Iron Head just coming out onto this Flutter Mane is enough to get that one-hit knockout.
But you feel the trade-off there is probably enough, right, to get the Shenpao, so you aren't really having to deal with the Swords of Ruin any longer, so it's not boosting anything on Arash's side of the field. But Arash still has got access to the Dragonite, still got access to the Arcanine. The Arcanine is a nice option here to bring in to get an Intimidate onto this Great Tusk, but you still have to be a little wary about the Great Tusk, because your Terrestrialization has been used up. A close combat from the Great Tusk will threaten the Kingambit, but if you go for that and you ignore the Arcanine, you are kind of putting yourself at risk of getting picked up by a Flare Blitz, but you've got the perfect partner next to you, which is that Iron Bundle. The big question is, can it survive a Sucker Punch from this Kingambit that does threaten it potentially going into this next turn?
Yeah, the fact that this Iron Bundle here is threatened by, all kinds of priority moves, and now the Flutter Mane is gone, means that, the Great Tusk and the Scissor, they can just keep getting intimidated by this Arcanine. I mean, of course, Great Tusk does have access to Headlong Rush, but once it locks itself into that move, it won't be able to switch that. And I mean, usually it wouldn't be able to hit a Flying type Dragonite in the back, but it has Terrestrialized into that normal type, so a Headlong Rush can hit all of Arash's remaining Pokemon.
Yeah, and I think that's a really nice point where you can go, if this survives, it doesn't, unfortunately, the Iron Bundle going down, do you then target down into that Arcanine if you are the Great Tusk and then worry about the Kingambit the next turn?
Headlong Rush coming out here as predicted into the Kingambit is not enough to get the KO, so if this Arcanine here goes for a Flare Blitz thanks to the defense drops, might just be enough to KO, but no, just goes for a Will-O-Wisp, is going to burn that Great Tusk, which now is really not going to be doing a lot. It is intimidated, it is burned, and now it is also locked into Headlong Rush, so it's just going to keep dropping those defenses, and who knows how much value this Pokemon will still have here for Shengyu, and of course it can't really do anything against just a Sucker Punch from Kingambit. it's stuck.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I think the Scizor coming in is not the most ideal Pokemon to bring in against an Arcanine. I like the way that Arash has utilized the Intimidate here to make sure that, this time around, if the Kingambit does take that headlong rush, with that -1 attack stat, it is going to be able to take it, and it is going to stick around on the field. He's getting a lot more value out of it this turn than he has done in the past. We do see the feint. It comes out. It does pick up a critical hit, and the Arcanine goes down to a headlong rush from this burnt -1. Great Tusk.
Yeah, but Great Tusk is at -2 defense now. So, if Kingambit goes for something like a category for a low kick, this may be enough to KO. It is enough to get the KO. And now Dragonite and Kingambit versus Scizor is our late game situation.
Yeah, and I think like all the Pokemon that are going to be on the field in one moment all have access to priority. The highest priority bracket is going to be that extreme speed on the Dragonite. We've seen how much damage that did before, but I believe the Shen Power was on the field at the time, so it was boosted. So it's not going to be doing that much, but you would imagine between the extreme speed and the Sucker Punch, it is going to be enough to pick up the Scizor. The question will be whether or not the Kingambit is faster than that Scizor, or if the Scizzor's faster, because the Sucker Punch will fail if it goes after the Bullet Punch. So that is a little bit risky. So I think you have to lock into the Bullet Punch if you are the Scizor. But if you can get rid of the Dragonite this turn, you go for the Bullet Punch, extreme speeds, you get that. The Kingambit goes Sucker Punch and it fails. Then the next turn you might be able to go for that Bullet Punch again to pick up the Kingambit, although it probably is just out of range of that. But we'll see how this turn plays out.
I think it's pretty safe for Arash to just go for a double extreme speed here, but it's actually not going to. It's just going to go down to a Bullet Punch from this Scizor. So now, unless this Kingambit gets the KO on this Scizor, then Shengyu might still have a chance to win this. Is going to go for a sucker punch, and it is going to fail because it is slower than that Scizor. And now, will the Scizor be able to KO this Kingambit with a Bullet Punch? I don't know. With a Pounce, maybe. But then again, is it going to go down to a Sucker Punch?
Well, I think you're in that position if you're Arash. Do you lock into a Sucker Punch again and risk a Bullet Punch coming out? I think the Pounce will pick up the knockout onto the Kingambit. Now, if you're Shengyu, you probably want to lock into that, knowing that the Sucker Punch is probably not the most reliable option here, because 2 Bullet Punches will get the Kingambit. So if you get this turn wrong again, it's all going to go bad. We do see the Assurance come out.
Oh, it's actually faster than the Scizor, so perhaps a die here. Citrus Berry on the Scizor is going to heal it back up a little bit, and now a Pounce. Is it going to be enough to KO? It is enough to get the KO. So this round does go to Shengyu, which means we finally have Shengyu in day 2.
He's finally got over that result. He has got into day 2, and finally, after all these attempts, it's great to see, and doing it in great fashion as well. And you've got to imagine there must have been a speed tie between the Scizor and the Kingambit there. So really fortunate in that turn where the Sucker Punch went after the Bullet Punch, because it easily could have been the other way around, but working out really well adjustment from Arash there as well. But Shengyu putting on such a show, such a dominating performance in that first game as well.
Yeah, and if I had to guess, I would say that both players wouldn't have known, which one of their, Scizors or Kingambits is faster. So I'm pretty sure it was a surprise for both of them there in that second game that, first the Scizor went first, but then after that the Kingambit was able to attack first. So I'm sure they were just as shocked as we were.
I think so. I think, like, at that point, you think they're both pretty slow Pokemon anyway. They're not the fastest Pokemon, because generally they're relying quite a lot on their priority attacks. If they're not, they're relying on the assurance. You want to be going after your opponent, so the speed isn't something of a priority, whereas the longevity, your defenses are more of a priority there. So yeah, like, I think you mentioned it. I think both players pretty surprised there, especially how that end turn played out, because in that situation, if Arash had just went for maybe assurance,
speed, maybe
even, and the extreme speed with the Dragonite, I think it probably would have been enough, especially if you'd went extreme speed assurance.
Yeah, because you have to think the extreme speed, although the Chi and Power was not on the field, I'm pretty sure like 2 extreme speed would have been enough to get the KO.
Yeah.
So you definitely get one of them, and if the Scizor goes into the Dragonite, then you have the Kingambit, attacking the Scizor, which again with assurance should have been enough. But if the Scizor goes into the Kingambit, you can just go for another extreme speed next turn and get the KO that way.
Yeah, because 2 extreme speeds, like you say, I think would have been enough to get the Scizor from that point, knowing that the damage that we'd seen before. The only question that I would have maybe on that would be that Citrus Berry. If that did activate,
yeah, that is
that
true.
might have thrown it just out of range for a second extreme speed. It's all I would have loved to have been able to kind of simulate that end game a few times and see what the different outcomes would have been. But I guess that's the beauty about Pokemon. It is a one-time only thing where we have to say, and one of the players has benefited from that, and it is Shengyu. And so well played, you know. I think the way that he played that Chi-Yu and the Iron Bundle, and I love the way that he actually protected the Iron Bundle through that match. He wasn't prepared at any stage to say, I'm willing to just let this go down so I can get a free switch in. He was quite happy to switch it about and make sure that he kept it preserved for as late into the game as possible.
Yeah, Iron Bundle doing a lot of work in that game 1, and I think Shengyu recognized that, and, you know, might have guessed that Arash Ommati wanted to get rid of that as fast as possible. And you know what better combination than Dragonite Chi and Power to get a quick, easy knockout turn 1. So yeah, correctly predicting that Arash was going to go after that Iron Bundle and protecting it. And you know, like both games, just huge turn 1s. You know, in that first game, also just getting a quick knockout on the Chi. Yeah, or on the Dragonite, sorry, my bad. Yeah, just a really, really dominating performance there from Shengyu.
Yeah, and let's just focus on the fact that Scissor has just pretty much won in the match. That's great. That's the second Scissor we've seen today, which I am thrilled about from a personal point of view. But it's just nice to see it being and having success. I like the ability that it has, that bullet punch. I really like the choice of feint in Quick Guard as well. These players are kind of opting to use, especially with all of the priority that, you know, a lot of teams are kind of relying on. We have a lot of Dragonite with that extreme speed, Arcanine as well, and the King Gambit as well. It really just shut out those kind of options and protects your partnering Pokemon quite nicely with that option. And then the feint as well to get around any potential protects. It's an option that we've seen used sporadically in previous formats, but not so much in this format, and it's nice to see it being utilized on something like this, where it can take advantage of maybe having something like the Chi-Yu, the Great Tusk, or one of those other big attackers next to it where it can just break a potential protect and then allow that fast defensive presence to just get an early lead in a match.
Yeah, just the fact that Scissor had that Quick Guard, it was already, you know, reason enough to bring it to this matchup, because, you know, Chi and Pao and Dragonite, as we mentioned, they like to use priority moves a lot. And because you did mention that, you know, Scissor with the pounce might not be the best Pokemon to bring into something like a King Gambit, because it can't really do much against it. But I think Scissor was very, very valuable in that matchup, even though Arash did bring the King Gambit there. You know, still, you know, even though the Quick Guard also never came into play, you could tell that Arash respected it.
Yeah, that's it. And I think that double switch in game 2, you really then looked, you think, why is he switched out there? He does have the opportunity to get a bit more damage on the field. Oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense. Arash doesn't want to waste turns. The Quick Guard's there. And I think the adjustment from Shengyu to get that Scissor in that position was really smart as well, because it did make Arash kind of have to adjust his board position because of the threat of that one move alone.
Yeah, and, you know, also that... I've heard if it was game 1 or game 2, or no, game 1, that like from the beginning that you had what was the lead again that Arash brought in game 1?
The Arcanine and the Shen Pao.
Yeah, the
and
Arcanine
then he switched to the Dragonite.
Exactly, and you know, you had the Iron Bundle on the field, and yeah, I really like the fact that Shengyu there did not go for a Hydro Pump into that Arcanine, and he kind of knew that, you know, that Arcanine, what's the worst it can do? It can go for an a Flare Blitz into my Iron Bundle, but I can take one Flare Blitz, you know? I can go for an Icy Wind here and just Heat Wave with my Chi-Yu and potentially get a huge knockout onto this Chi and Pao, and if it protects, it's not going to do any damage.
Yeah, and like we saw it kind of play out as well. If Arash does adjust and switches anything else in other than that, you know, from the Arcanine to anything else in the back, then I'm going to get some real leverage in this match. Even the Dragonite, I was surprised that it got knocked out from that combination. I say that and I'm not kind of surprised as well, just from the sheer power that the Beads of Ruin gives, you know, the special attacking Pokemon with that ability. But the multi-scale is such a strong ability. I know it was broken, but Iron Bundle doing so much damage that turn, and then Chi-Yu was
Yeah, you have to also keep in mind this Chi-Yu is running Life Orb as opposed to like the safety goggles or Focus Sash that we've seen some sets run with, you know, that nasty plot. And here, you know, just deciding to go for that Dark Pulse and Heat Wave and also a Terra Blast, and it is running Terra Grass. So, you know, deciding to just give it that Life Orb does not need a nasty plot. It's not going to set up. So, you know, but in situations like that where you don't really have the chance to go for something like a nasty plot, it's nice to have that damage right away.
Yeah, I think that's a really good thing to point out as well. The Life Orb makes such a big difference. Like the damage output normally, you're kind of used to knowing what it does, but yeah, it was probably enough in that situation to push it over the edge to get the Dragonite pretty easily. Although it probably maybe got it anyway. I don't know. It was pretty low in that situation.
Yeah, but no, I'm really hyped that we got to see Scizor on stream. We've seen some interesting Pokemon throughout the day. Like also in a few rounds ago, we had a Magnezone on stream. There was a Breloom in the same team. We did not get to see it on stream.
I was a bit sad that we didn't get to see the Breloom.
Yeah, no, and also in Malmö, of course, we have things like Squawkabilly. So it's really cool that towards the end of this regulation, getting to see a little bit more than just, you know, your standard meta Pokemon. And even if we do, we see a lot of variations that maybe, you know, we haven't seen so much of before.
Yeah.
Like we did see Chi and Pao a few rounds ago carrying a Life Orb over a Focus Sash, you know, in that same team with the Magnezone.
Yeah, and the Breloom, and that was really strong. I mean, that really, I think, caught Roberto's opponent off guard completely when the Sucker Punch came out, because it was so strong. You think in most situations the Sucker Punch probably just misses the knockout, but with the Life Orb, when you know your calculations with it, it's so worthwhile because it does push those close to getting a knockout moves into that knockout territory, and that can be the difference between winning and losing a lot of the time. And yeah, we're seeing a lot of players kind of going back to your point about picking selective, like really unique Pokemon. Like we've seen the Breloom. Hopefully it does come back onto stream. Of course, we've got one more game today, and then we've got all of day 2 tomorrow, so we've got plenty of opportunity to see some more unique picks from these players. But we are seeing, as we get closer to the end of the season, these kind of unique ideas coming out and really hitting the floor and showing why they shouldn't be overlooked so much, because they can perform super well and like they have been doing in this tournament so far.
Yeah, I just really quickly want to point out that, you know, the Sucker Punch on the Fluttermane, it did KO, but there are definitely Fluttermanes out there that can survive that.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
in that case, you know, Fluttermane opting for more like speedier set with more special attack.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing to point out as well, because you get so many different variations of Fluttermane. There are the ones out there that can comfortably take that Sucker Punch. But we are getting the interview set up with Shengyu.
Hello trainers and welcome back. We are here with your winner from the last round, Shengyu Wang, and what an incredible match against a former world champion. How does it feel to take out such an incredible player in such commanding style?
It's amazing, and I just can't believe that. Yeah, it's because before the battle, I don't know he's the world champion, so I have no pressure. I just do what I want to do.
And sometimes that's the key, isn't
it?
Yeah. You have to just play the right turns in the right order, and you know that your game plan is the one to go for.
Yeah. I think before that tournament, and he asked me, "Have you been on Steam?" I said no, and he smiled. I just can't believe that. Yeah.
Maybe a knowing smile, but certainly wasn't ready for what was to come. And you did so well in that match. There was lots of predictions with the bullet punch and the sucker punches and all of the priority moves that the team had. What were your thoughts playing that game? What was going through your minds at the time?
首先我的螳螂带的快速防守。其次，我觉得我的匈牙的钛金刚可以阻止大部分的技能，比如水流喷射以及冰炫。
Oh yeah, so first of all, the Scizor has quick guard, and also the Terra Steel on Great Toss is also very helpful against those priority moves. So in terms of mind games and predictions, I think we have an advantage.
其实，在比赛前我们练过很多，就是面对各种快速技能，然后我们的快速防守有奇效，但在这场比赛里，他好像并没有防止很多技能。
Yeah, because actually before the game we had a lot of practice against those priority moves, and in all of those practices, quick guard worked very well. But I think in this particular game it doesn't really work, but at least it puts a lot of pressure on the opponent.
It definitely changes the way that your opponent has to play around that Scizor. And coming on to that Scizor, what was the reason that you brought it in this team specifically?
这很要感谢这是张恒岳老师，他组的这个队伍让本来这个队伍的位置应该是盾箍的，但是我们换成了这个螳螂之后，明显我们的胜率有显著提升。
So he has gratitude to Heng Yue, which is me, for building this team. At first, the sixth member on this team was Among Us, but then we realized that we need something with a priority move to sweep out once we lose the speed control, and it turns out working very, very well.
Because Bullet Punch can kill Fatal Main once, definitely.
Definitely very, very useful thing to be able to do with Flutter Main on nearly every single team.
Definitely, yes.
So I understand that you are quite close to a Day 1 Worlds invitation at the moment, and I think this win going 7-2 and going into Day 2 of this competition is going to mean that you're able to get your Day 1 invite for sure. Are we going to be seeing you at the World Championships this year?
Yeah, sure, definitely. Thank you.
It'll be great to see what you bring to there, and really excited to see what interesting teams that you managed to bring at that event. But before we go to a break, do you have any shout-outs for people that have helped you along the way?
是否要感谢一些帮助过你的人？
首先，我要感谢这一路上，首先是坐在我旁边的张老师，其次是这路上支持我的所有的朋友和家人。
First of all, he thanks me, and he also thanks every friend and family who supported him along the way.
Yeah, I hope I can create. 奇迹怎么说？ I hope I can create a miracle again. Yeah.
I'm sure we'll see that in the not too distant future. Thank you very much for your time here. We're going to be going to a short break now, trainers, but stay tuned. We'll be back for the next round of the Turin special event. You won't want to miss it.